How's it guys, this is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel, and welcome to Wildcard Week. Yes, I have activated that wildcard for Game Week 31, so throughout this video, I'll be taking you through my initial draft and all the talking points behind the wildcard. We're going to be going over why I've actually activated the wildcard for Game Week 31. We're going to be then turning our attention to the fixtures before finally looking at the wildcard initial draft for Game Week 31. Right at the end of the video, I'll also be taking you guys through the current team that I do have to target those price rises and those price drops. So how it's going to work throughout this week, every single video at the end of it, I'm going to be highlighting my current team so that you guys can keep up to date with those price rises and those price drops. Because remember, the thing about the wildcard and the planning that's nice about it is that you can catch maybe a double price rise to give you an extra 0.1 million to spend on your final draft. So just keep that in mind throughout this week's videos. Stay till the end of the video or just skip to the end of it to make sure that you get the most updated draft, because I won't be posting it over on Twitter or on this YouTube page. Hopefully you'll be doing a Deadline with Dayvy live stream for the Friday deadline for Game Week 31. That's going to be absolutely massive as we finalize our final wildcard draft. So that's something you're interested in. Sit back, relax, and let's get straight into this video. So starting off, why Game Week 31 for our wildcard? If you guys do recall last week's videos, we constantly spoke about kind of a dilemma between saving it for maybe a double game week from Game Week 35 to 38, or use it for the confirmed fixture swings which happen about Game Week 31, which is right now. So the first reason is quite the most practical one and the most obvious one. We've basically dead-ended our current FPL team because of blank Game Week 29. So if you do remember, blank Game Week 29 was an absolutely massive blank game week, the biggest blank of this FPL season. So we targeted sides that might not have the best fixtures from now to the end of the season. Think of a Leeds and Aston Villa. Most of those sides have tough opposition coming up, so we can kind of refresh our own squads with this wildcard, take those Leeds and Aston Villa players out, and then target players with some nice fixture swings. So that's the first reason. Because we've dead-ended our squad, we now want to get fresh players in with better fixtures. The second reason is more of a differential aspect and more of an overall rank chasing. So we currently have our goal for the end of the season, and that's going to be the top 10k. So from now to the end of the season, we can get some nice FPL differentials in our squads that will hopefully propel our rank up to that overall goal. So by going a little bit more differential, this might actually come back to bite us, and maybe going without a player like a Bruno Fernandes, who's really high owned, might not be the most smart decision. But to get that top 10k and that top overall rank gain, we need to kind of target some differential aspects. So we'll be highlighting some differentials in our initial draft, and hopefully in the final draft, you're also targeting some nice differentials with some great fixtures as well. So that second reason is the differential aspect that we can get with that wildcard to target some nice overall rank gains. And then the third and final reason is just more of a prediction. So I went over to Ben Krellin. He mentioned something about Game Week 35 being the most sensible option for that double game week at the end of the season. And what I did was I looked at the fixtures, and those fixtures didn't actually look too great for the double game weeks. A lot of fixtures against a Chelsea and a Man City, and I mean, you really want to be playing against those top 6 oppositions at the end of the season, unless they're kind of on the beach. And I'm pretty sure that Man City would have wrapped up the Premier League by then, but I still think they'll put out a decent squad. I mean, their bench could probably win the Premier League at the moment. And I mean, Chelsea this weekend, although they had a really bad game against West Bromwich Albion, so you might actually want to play Chelsea at the moment, I do think they'll rebound defensively and from an overall attacking point of view, so I think they're going to be quite a tough opponent to face. So the fixtures in that Game Week 35 aren't that great, but don't take that as gospel, because remember, Game Week 35 was just kind of a prediction, and that double game week can happen anywhere from Game Week 35 to 38. So maybe a Game Week 38 a double game week is going to have absolutely sensational fixtures, but we just don't know that yet. And that's basically what it came down to, either going for a confirmed fixture swing at wildcard, or maybe keeping it for an unconfirmed double game week in the near future. So I decided to go for the confirmed aspect because that's right in front of us, that's what we can plan for. So that's why I went for the Game Week 31 wildcard, and hopefully you guys are also joining me on this journey so we can have a massive wildcard week on this channel. So now going on to the next talking point, which is going to be European football. And that's the other nice aspect of using a wildcard in Game Week 31. We have the Champions League, and we also have the Europa League coming up this midweek, starting tomorrow till about Thursday evening. If you guys do want to watch those games, the first competition is going to be the Champions League, which is probably going to be the one that you guys do focus on, because that is an elite competition. So those footballing sides that are in that Champions League are going to be playing their full starting 11s. This includes Chelsea, Man City, and Liverpool. Those are the 3 teams from the Premier League in the Champions Champions League at the moment. So it's going to kind of give us a good indication of how those squads are going to set up and what's the basic best starting 11 that those managers do think they have. The team that I'll be focusing on the most from the Champions League is going to be Man City, because if Man City have a really good first leg, maybe they'll have some rotation in the second leg since that tie has already been wrapped up. The also interesting thing about Man City is that they do play Leeds this weekend, which is pretty much one of the best fixtures that you guys can have from an attacking point of view. So from a captaincy point of view as well, I think a lot of people are going to be targeting those Man City assets. So if the player does start in the Champions League and the game is quite close, I reckon that on the weekend, Pep Guardiola is going to come out and rotate the squad fully, and they're going to play that simple starting 11 again in the next midweek and next week. So that's the thing to focus on if you want to go for a Man City option, and that's what's nice about a wild card, is that we can kind of target whichever Man City player we think is going to start in game week 31, and then we can potentially captain them if we are confident on a start, because Leeds, as I said, is one of the best fixtures to look at. We then move on to the next competition, which is going to be the Europa League. I think the only two teams in there are currently Arsenal and Manchester United. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Spurs and Leicester did get knocked out, so that's also a nice thing to focus on if you want to go for a Spurs or a Leicester option, because they don't have any European football. With United and Arsenal, pretty sure they'll be playing their full strength 11s as well, because it is the Europa League after all, quite an elite competition, not as elite as the Champions League, so there might be some rotation here and there throughout the end of the season in this competition, but I still think you guys should focus on it if you are looking at maybe a Bruno Fernandes or maybe a Lacazette, to just make sure that their minutes have been managed and they should be starting on the weekend. But that's enough about the European football. Please guys, do focus on this though, because it's going to give us quite a lot of insight into game week 31 and from now to the end of the season. So now moving on to the fixtures, and the fixtures have been updated from game week 31 to 38. What I did is I went over to fantasyfootballhub.co.uk and I sorted the fixtures from now to the end of the season in terms of an attacking rating. And as you can see, it has been updated here because of that Spurs fixture against Newcastle now being finished, and the fixtures from now till then have been updated. We do have Arsenal at that new number 1 spot, and that Arsenal number 1 spot puts a lot of dilemma in my mind, because currently I don't have many Arsenal players in my initial draft, and I definitely think that I should be highlighting someone. I mean, just look at those fixtures from now to the end of the season. Absolutely amazing fixtures for Arsenal. So I definitely think I should be targeting some Arsenal attackers and defenders. The only tough spot about Arsenal is that we just kind of don't know who's going to be starting in that starting 11. I mean, we've seen Aubameyang even be rotated sometimes. I want to go for someone like Lacazette, but I don't know if it's worth going for a Lacazette when I can go for someone a little bit more secured in that starting lineup that I know will be starting every single game week. But the thing about those players is they don't have the fixtures that Arsenal do have. So you guys should definitely be targeting Arsenal. The other thing about Arsenal is they are quite differential. I mean, just think about how many FPL squads you've looked at that don't have a single Arsenal player in them. That's probably going to be quite a few FPL teams that come to my mind. The second team here is going to be Spurs. I think that's simply due to that double game week that they do have in game week 32. A little bit of a tough game week in game week 31 against Manchester United. That game can kind of go either way. Don't look into the history of this fixture, because if you do recall, Martial did get sent off in the first game of the season that these two clubs face each other, and if you do remember, that game ended about 6-1 if I do recall. So that fixture is probably going to skew your data quite a bit and make you think that that United game is going to be quite an easy one, but I think it's going to be a tough game there, and with the form that Spurs are on right now from a defensive point of view, I reckon that that could be quite a tough game for Spurs to win. So United, tough game in game week 31, but then they go face Everton and Southampton, which I think look a lot better on paper there for Spurs, and I mean, it is a double game week, so us FPL managers are always going to be targeting the Spurs assets. So I still would look at some Spurs options, maybe not a defender in this case. I still maybe would go for a Heung-min Son or maybe a Harry Kane. I think 2 Spurs options is perfectly adequate for game week 32, and the nice thing about Spurs, I mean, just look at those fixtures after blank game week 33, so as long as you can bench those Spurs options and you can have a full starting 11 in blank game week 33, I mean, Sheffield United, Leeds, Wolves, Aston Villa, great fixtures from then to the end of the season, so I still think those Spurs options are worth holding after that double game week. We then have some other options there. Liverpool, we'll talk about Liverpool a lot because I am going for basically an essential triple up in defense and attack for Liverpool. We then have Wolves as another side that I'm going to be targeting. But what you guys can do is pause the video right now. If you guys aren't on Fantasy Football Hub, as I recommend, you can just pause this video and use this as your transfer planner for your wildcard or even maybe for your free transfers to just highlight some teams that you are going to be looking at. We then have some more prolific teams there. We have United, Man City and Chelsea kind of edging up the bottom of my selection there. Remember, this isn't every single Premier League team at the moment. I've just gone for kind of my top selection up until the teams that I am targeting. But Man City, United and Chelsea have just been shown they don't have great fixtures from now to the end of the season. They have some good fixtures here and there, but with that blank game week for Man City, you might be targeting other squads instead to kind of get some good rotation. The thing about Man City as well, we spoke about that Champions League. I think they're going to be in the Champions League for quite a while. I'm really confident in them winning their kind of a knockout tie in this stage of the Champions League. So there's going to be some massive rotation there as they kind of balance those European competitions as well as those cup competitions. That's why I'm not really favoring Man City too much. While they have the best potential and the highest ceiling, not only from an offensive but also an attacking point of view, I think that I would rather target sides with average fixtures that have nailed players to start, just to kind of bring down the risk of some rotation and me needing a really strong bench. But that's enough of the fixtures. As I said, just pause the video if you guys want to. Let's move on to the actual draft. So this is my current initial draft for my wildcard on Game Week 31. A little bit of some controversial picks here and there. I know Bruno Fernandes is probably a big one that you guys are going to be debating. So drop your comments down below with your wildcard drafts or kind of your talking points that you want me to address. Maybe I'm not that clear on some of the talking points and the players that I do end up picking. But just a little bit of admin to get out the way first. I've got 0.0 remaining in the bank. If you guys can do some upgrades, you can probably do it in defense or attack. Just kind of go for whatever your budget entails, and pretty much the more expensive players you do pick over these budget options should hopefully get you more points. But starting off in goal, I've gone for the Forster-Mendy combo. This has been quite a good combination I carried over from the Game Week 30 wildcard drafts that I did go for. There are some other things that you can go for. Patricio from Wolves could also be quite an assured option. I've also seen some people go for a Leno, and I mean, if you look at those Arsenal fixtures, definitely maybe target that. But I think the Forster-Mendy combination should be quite good. Forster started this weekend against Burnley. Now, while that fixture didn't go to plan, and there could be some rotation with McCarthy next week, I do still think that Forster will start every single game week here and there, and I think every alternative game week could be quite good for Southampton. And if Mendy has a bad fixture, I can always just kind of hope that Forster's going to start that one. But Mendy pretty much going to be the main keeper for our FPL squads and our FPL wildcard, as I just think although Chelsea had a really bad game against West Bromwich Albion this weekend, you must remember that Thiago Silva did get sent off. Now, while I don't think that's a valid excuse, as you shouldn't be kind of conceding 5 goals to West Bromwich Albion, especially when you subbed on another defender. I think they subbed on Christensen because Thiago Silva did get that red card. So, I mean, they still did have a full backline there. So, I don't think you should be conceding 5 goals to West Bromwich Albion. But maybe this is kind of the wake-up call that Chelsea needed, and they can kind of use this positively and rebound from now to the end of the season, hopefully shore up that defense quite well. I'm also going to be talking about Rudiger right now because that's kind of the combination I went for my Chelsea assets. 100% think that Azpilicueta is probably the better one to go for, as I think he's a little bit more nailed, and from an attacking return, maybe a little bit more likely to get an attacking return. But because Rudiger is so cheap, I'm willing to take that possible rotation with him, and I kind of hope that he starts most game weeks from now to the end of the season. You could also look at it as a positive, and they lost without him in the squad, so maybe they think that he is the kind of keystone in that defense and will be starting the majority of games. The thing to also note about Rudiger was that there was a newspaper report of a potential bust up in training with him and Kepa. Now, while this looks quite bad, in the news report they did say that the Chelsea manager did note that Rudiger apologized to Kepa on his own, and that the Chelsea manager was kind of comfortable with the situation and Rudiger had been forgiven. So I wouldn't look into that whole debacle too much. The thing you must note is with these footballing sides, I think there's a lot of kind of skirmishes and disagreements that go around. They just aren't always published by the press. So I wouldn't worry about Rudiger and his place suddenly now being out of the Chelsea squad because of that little bit of an argument. So I still am confident that he will be in that starting 11 for most game weeks this season. The rest of the defense I'm actually quite excited about, and the main reason for that is that I have returned a Liverpool legend and an FPL legend there, Alexander-Arnold. So 7.3 is a lot to spend on a defender, so you guys can kind of decide if you think he's worth that fee. But with the Liverpool fixtures being quite good and the Liverpool's defense kind of shoring up a little bit recently, I think that he could provide some good threat there. Also from an attacking point of view, Trent has seemed to have improved on his crossing from kind of early on in the season, so I think it's worth taking the punch here, and I don't think many people are going to be able to get Trent in without a wild card, so that's why I think it might be worth kind of just going for that differential aspect with that ceiling hopefully being quite high. So he's one of those essential players that I am looking at kind of in my draft because I want to get more of a differential aspect but also take advantage of those great fixtures, and I think Trent does that exactly. The rest of the defense we've got for Stones here at 5.3, and the nice thing about Stones is I brought Stones in here because I want to target that Leeds fixture, as I think that it could be quite profitable for a Man City asset. And with Stones, also that attacking threat does come up here and there, and I was a little bit annoyed by owning Diaz and Cancelo, and with Stones picking up that massive haul in that double game week, I think it was 21 points if I do recall, I think that he could be a great shout. The nice thing at that 5.3 price bracket, I mean, a player like a Tierney is the same price as him, a player like a Luke Shaw is the same price as him, so you can rotate that to a position wherever you guys do please, and maybe you just keep him for that Leeds fixture and you take him out, but I think that you should at least have some Man City coverage for that Leeds fixture. We then move on to Amarty here. He did play for Leicester against Man City. Now, while I don't think he's going to start every single game week, with Leicester's nice fixtures coming up, I think that I'm willing to take the risk on him, and if I do have to start him, and I don't think he's going to come off the bench too many game weeks, so I've gone for the cheap Leicester fullback, and at 3.9, not too much risk there. I'm just kind of hoping that he manages to play maybe when the other fullbacks aren't at their peak fitness. Then the last defender we do have is Connor Cody from Wolves. You spoke about those lovely Wolves fixtures. At 4.8, not too much risk there. And the last thing about Cody is that you are basically assured that he's going to be starting most game weeks. That's why I kind of wanted to have a good assured defender on my bench. If he has to come on with those great fixtures, hopefully he can get a clean sheet. The midfield here, we've gone for a 4 in the midfield with Smith Rowe. Currently is injured, but I'm expecting him to come back from that injury. And when he does come back, I think that he will start most game weeks. If you do recall, before the injury, he was playing a lot of minutes for Arsenal. So I'm expecting him at 4.2 to hopefully come on and hopefully do some work in that attack. But the rest of the midfield is going to be Neto, Salah, Son and Jota. So I've gone for the double up in that Liverpool attack with Salah and Jota. I just think from a point of view of a premium side's attackers playing, I think that Salah and Jota should start most game weeks, and I reckon if one of them is benched, the other one will play. So going for a little bit of coverage there. I know Jota covers Salah a lot more because he is quite a lot cheaper, but I think with those fixtures coming up, Liverpool's attack is looking like they're kind of getting on the track of previous seasons. So I'm hoping that from a differential point of view, the double up could provide some goods. I've gone for Neto here from a Wolves attack. We will see kind of how Wolves play against West Ham tonight, and I'm kind of hoping that we do see some glimpses of some attacking threat from Wolves, and I'm pretty sure that Neto will be that main talisman in that, so I've gone for him. And with those lovely Wolves fixtures coming up, I can simply just play him in that starting lineup every single game week for the foreseeable future, and kind of be assured that they do have a great fixture. Then finally, we've gone for Son and Kane. I'll talk about both of them because they are from the same squad. I've gone for Son and Kane because I think you guys basically have to because of that double game week 32. So the best options in my opinion, I mean, we saw Kane this weekend, how prolific he can be. I know Spurs are a little bit of a weird spot right now from an attacking point of view, but I think that Son definitely will be playing. Came off on that halftime mark, so a little bit of a surprise that he didn't start, but maybe they're just trying to get his match fitness coming up. And as I mentioned, they don't have any European football at the moment, so you're pretty much assured that these two will be starting every single game. The final kind of double up we're going to be speaking about is going to be Iheanacho and Vardy. So a little bit excited about this Leicester double up. We saw this weekend that they started against Man City with two strikers. I mean, it's kind of been a little bit of a debate here with those returning Leicester attackers such as Maddison. I know Harvey Barnes might not be back for the end of the season, but if he does come back by some miracle, but then maybe Iheanacho's position is going to be a little bit compromised. But after having won the best player of the month for the Premier League last month, I think that Iheanacho is a little bit undroppable at the moment. I mean, he just signed a new contract for Leicester, so the last thing Brendan Rodgers is going to want to do is not play him in the form that he's in. So I've gone for Iheanacho and Vardy here, just take advantage of those nice fixtures. The one kind of debate that I was in is going for Vardy over someone like a Lacazette, when you could argue that Lacazette pretty much has the best fixtures. But the thing about Vardy is, well, any European football, and I think they only kind of have the FA Cup coming up, semi-finals that they have to worry about. Vardy should be starting every single game week from now to the end of the season, whereas Lacazette, there might be some rotation there with that Europa League that we can't really foresee in the future game week. So I've gone for Vardy and Iheanacho here just to take advantage of those lovely attacking fixtures from Leicester's point of view, and Leicester are still challenging for that top 4 spot, so I think they could be in with a shout there to get that Champions League football next week. And I mean, if that's not a motivator, what is? But this is current initial draft. As I mentioned, things could change here, but I wanted to give you guys kind of my insight into what I'm currently planning on and what rotation I could have with potential players. But now let's get on to the pros and the cons of this draft. So not talking about the pros because we kind of covered that a little bit. I'm just going to be talking about the cons here. And the first one's going to be kind of a theme, I think, with most drafts, and that's the Man City coverage here. So as you noted, I didn't have any Man City attackers, and when they are facing Leeds in game week 31, that could be quite a high scoring game. So that's why I'm kind of putting this point here for that Man City coverage, but that's also something that we can address through this midweek after watching Man City in the Champions League. If a player like a Mahrez doesn't play in the Champions League, that's going to be mighty tempting to maybe bring him in and captain him for that game week 31 fixture against Leeds. I still do have some defensive coverage here with Stones, but I think that I'll take him out relatively soon to take advantage of some other fixture swings with some players that are a little bit more nailed. But that's the one thing that I will note with the Man City coverage, but that's kind of the caveat with this wildcard, is that we might have to go without Man City just because of that potential rotation coming up in the future game weeks. Also with blank game week 33, I do have 3 players that will be blanking. That's going to be Stones, Son and Kane, but as I mentioned, Stones is probably going to be on the way out. Whether be next game week or the game week after that before the blank, so I will only have 2 players. So perfectly comfortable with that. The thing you must note is don't go for too many cheap options and then not have a kind of a playing bench for that blank game week 33. I mean, playing a player like a Marty in blank game week 33 is going to be a definite risk there, as I don't know if he's going to be starting. So just keep that in mind. Don't go for too much of a cheap bench. Maybe go for some 4.5s that are basically guaranteed to get you guys about 2 points every single game week. I mean, that's 2 points more than you would have got with a non-playing player for blank game week 33. And then finally, there's no Fernandes. So obviously that is talking about Bruno Fernandes, not the kind of a defender for Newcastle there. But no, Bruno is a massive risk. We saw this weekend with that assist against Brighton. I mean, that already took a hit to my rank and my green arrow for game week 30. So with that high ownership, one of the most highly owned, if not the most highly owned player currently. So going with no Fernandes is definitely a risk, but it might be kind of a risk and spread that budget that we do take to kind of go up the ranks, hopefully from a differential point of view. But now let's get on and look at my current team for those price rises. So this is the current squad with those price rises taken into account. What I'm doing is I'm currently monitoring the price rises on various websites and kind of going for the players that are predicted to rise and taking the players that are predicted to drop out the squad. So no, this is not the final draft or my draft at all. You can see there by the 3-Man City options that this is not going to be my final draft, but this is the current team. So just pause the video, make those changes as you guys do please, and get the players that currently are in the squad in your lineups, because they are expected to price rise relatively soon. This is basically wrap the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like it if you did, and subscribe if you're new and have not subscribed yet. I'll be seeing you guys tomorrow for more of a video on how you guys can boost your ranks and win your mini leagues from now to the end of the season, before we return to the normal previews and then team selection coming up later on. As I mentioned, hopefully going to be doing a Deadline with Dayvy live stream for that Friday deadline. I will probably do it a little bit longer than 30 minutes because we are talking about the wild card and it is kind of a special Deadline with Dayvy live stream. But otherwise, I'm going to be signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL and I'm out. Cheers. Bye.